Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Indie Alaska is an innovative weekly web series capturing the diverse and colorful lifestyle of Alaskans. Real stories of everyday Alaskans at work and play. Supported in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company.
The National Weather Service.
Good Wednesday, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service. It's the 18th of March. As always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather information, whether that's a watch, warning, or advisory situation, or just a regular, almost spring-like day across your part of Alaska. Weather.gov/Alaska is the place to find us online. You can always use the weather info line at 800-472-0391. Find us online, find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. On Facebook, it's NWS Alaska. And if you've got questions about your weather situation or you'd like to show us some pictures of what it looks like under your weather in Alaska, send that to us on Facebook or on Twitter. You can use the hashtag AKwx or find us on YouTube in the afternoon for your daily afternoon map briefing. Or, of course, find us after this show at our broadcast partner here at alaskapublic.org. On the bottom right-hand side of your screen, you'll find their broadcast of this broadcast on their website, or just go to YouTube, and AKwx TV is how you can find this entire clip whenever you're ready to watch. The hazardous weather outlook for the rest of tonight shows that the western sections of the Seward Peninsula and the St. Lawrence Island seacoast probably going to see a little more wind as we head into tonight. Around 10 o'clock or so, wind chill advisory will begin, and we're watching for those values to feel as cold as 45 below. North and easterly winds will be strong and gusty, about 40 to 45 miles per hour, in fact, as we head into tonight and early tomorrow morning. And because of that, it's going to be dangerously cold, at least for a little while, as we head into the overnight hours and early tomorrow morning. The winds will continue as we head through tomorrow, but that wind chill factor will probably be a little bit less, so maybe not as cold as what it will be during the overnight hours. So if you have to go outside tonight, once again, be extra careful there and use a few more extra layers and keep you and your skin a little bit more on the happy side. As we go out toward the western Bering Sea, just a little bit further, you can see on the satellite pictures several circulations, one of those south of the central and eastern chain, pulling in clouds and drier air into the circulation across the North and West Pacific. We've got another wave coming off of eastern Asia. This is already spinning up there south and west of Shemya, and yet another disturbance already firing up around Japan and moving eastward across the North and Western Pacific. Looking at the loop one more time, you'll notice that this entire circulation here is all rotating under an upper level low pressure system. You'll see that again in the jet stream. This is controlling our entire weather pattern right now, and until this budges, we won't see a whole lot of changes in the Gulf. We'll continue to see fairly warm weather across the west, fairly dry weather in the interior and central Alaska, and in the north, several areas of kind of a passing waves of snow showers and occasional rounds of stronger winds. And pretty much that's where we are right now. It looks like that will continue into the weekend. For today, you can see moisture moving up the eastern part of the Gulf of Alaska, coming out of the Pacific Northwest. The next round of moisture is moving into southeastern Alaska, and this is all rotating in on itself, remember. So all of this just kind of getting stirred up here by that upper level low pressure system that's anchored right about here. All this moisture will be focusing on the north and western and eastern Gulf Coast, with that periods of rain, maybe a little bit of rain and snow mixed in together as you get into some of the colder zones out across the west. For most of the interior, you can see a partly to mostly cloudy sky passing through from time to time, and then you'll get a patch of very dry conditions as you saw by late afternoon today. For the north, mostly cloudy conditions there, some passing snow showers and occasional stronger winds moving through. And for the west, warm air has been working northward, again starting to chip away at some of the ice across Norton Sound, creating some polinias there. Across the western tip of the Seward Peninsula, that means stronger winds. And some of those winds could be a little bit stronger as you head up toward the Chukchi Seacoast. That cold continues down through the central chain, and for areas around the central Aleutians, that rain and snow line will be hovering fairly close to your area, maybe as far east as Dutch Harbor, Unalaska, and maybe as far west as Adak in this current pattern. Today's weather map shows that frontal boundary that has brought warm air or allowed warm air to move into the western coast is kind of moving back eastward a little bit. It's going to wobble around a little bit more before it completely falls apart and the air gets mixed up a little bit more. The southerly flow working across the eastern Gulf has brought some pockets of rainfall to the central and southern southeast. Some heavier rainfall across the eastern Kenai Peninsula up around Whittier and southward. And Kodiak was seeing at least a little bit of rainfall today. In fact, that little bit totaled to about 9/10, so maybe a spring day for you. A warmer air is working across the central and eastern chain. That means rainfall this afternoon for Dutch Harbor and Alaska. The occluded front was working north into the southern Bering Sea, and as we get into tonight, that front should start to fall apart there. That will bring snow showers back to the Pribilofs, or maybe just continue them. Rain and snow showers south of Dillingham and into King Salmon. Watch for rain to continue around the north and eastern Gulf Coast. Low pressure and another wave of it working northward toward the southern tip of Haida Gwaii. It could bring some snow showers up the higher train in Chilkoot and White Pass. Most areas looking at rainfall in southeast, if any. And snow showers continue across the north slope with our frontal boundary still lingering close to Norton Sound and Nome, where temperatures were considerably warmer today. In fact, temperatures there made it up into, looks like the upper teens, I believe. Now, a trough of low pressure will swing across the north slope by Thursday afternoon. With that, we expect some more snow showers for the north slope. And for the west, we still have our lingering frontal boundary here. This won't give it up. And along that boundary, or any frontal boundary for that matter, as long as there's enough moisture and lift along that, you can produce clouds and certainly the opportunity for some snow showers. It looks like some of that will linger around St. Lawrence Island across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, some of that more rain than snow. The further south you go, we're getting into even warmer air still, and for Dutch Harbor and Alaska, Akutan, probably talking about rain showers there. To the west, it will be snow. For South Central, most of the precipitation will really focus on the coastal areas, including Prince William Sound. There might be a brief opportunity for some rain and snow showers around the Anchorage Bowl, probably not a whole lot further north than the Matanuska Valley. And the Susitna Valley at this point for tomorrow looks pretty dry. For southeast, scattered rain showers are possible, but even that looks pretty sparse. But still, we have several waves of low pressure lurking in the Gulf. So if one of those shifts just a little bit more in your direction, you'll have a better chance of getting that wet weather. For Friday afternoon, low pressure is working up the eastern side once again. This one's at 990 millibars, bringing an occlusion a little bit closer to the Dixon entrance. This will probably pick the winds up a little bit more in your area and increase the rainfall opportunities from, it looks like Cross Sound southward toward the Dixon entrance. As you look out across Prince William Sound, another wave of low pressure will rotate across the north and western side. That might pick the winds up a little bit more, both in the Sound, through the Barren Islands and Cook Inlet. And then we've finally lost our delineating boundary here of warm and cooler air. And once we get to that point, really not a whole lot of change in the sensible weather, but you'll notice a few snow showers lingering across Norton Sound, Nunivak Island, out toward the Pribilofs, and rain showers continue for the central and eastern chain, as well as the Alaska Peninsula. At elevation, you're probably looking at a better chance for rain and snow. The interior is still dry, south and west, and most of the main stem rivers are fairly dry, and pretty much things continue on as they have today. Fairly mild, especially in the west, and certainly in the interior. Let's talk temperatures. Upper 40s for most of southeast today. Petersburg was looking at temps in the upper 40s as well. Ketchikan, Metlakatla, Craig, Klawock, Sitka, all running very close to, if not even above 50 degrees for some parts of the day. Lower to mid 50s around Prince William Sound. Homer topped that out at 3 o'clock, 53 degrees there. Anchorage was 36, Kenai was 45. The Susitna Valley well into the mid 40s this afternoon. Healy was showing 43 degrees, 34 around Fort Greely, 40 in Fairbanks, got even warmer there by mid-afternoon, 37 in Eagle and 30 in Northway. Fort Yukon was about 28 degrees there. Arctic Village at 9, Anaktuvuk Pass 21. And for the Arctic coast, temps stayed below zero, anywhere from 0 to 10 below, until you got south and west of Wainwright, where temperatures out toward Point Lay were just plain old cold, 16 to 23 below there on the chart. Looks like Point Lay started out at 27 below this morning. That's one of the colder spots. For Kotzebue Sound, we saw temps on either side of 0. Kotzebue was up to 4. Tin City 12 below. Nome up to 19 by late afternoon. Low to mid-teens for Norton Sound, and once again some of that warmer air working across the water was chewing up the ice just a little bit more. Around Bristol Bay, 30s and 40s there. Lower 40s for Kodiak Island, and about the same picture there for the Alaska Peninsula and most of the chain. Shemya was 34. Look for overnight lows there, close to freezing with south and west in the 20s and 30s. The interior in the teens and 20s. The north slope 5 to 20 below, 14 above in Nome and southeast in the mid to upper 30s, with south central holding fairly close to freezing tonight. Highs tomorrow back in the mid to upper 40s, 43 in Kodiak, mid 40s for southeast. The interior interior, also near 40 degrees, 39 in Fairbanks. Teens and 20s for the south-facing slopes of the Brooks Range, anywhere from 10 above to 10 below across the North Slope, 24 in Nome, 31 in Unalakleet, southwest in the upper 30s, and the peninsula as well as the chain a lot closer to 40 degrees. Flying weather continues with MVFR conditions coming and going across southeast and most of the Gulf Coast. Along Cook Inlet, things should be VFR for most of the way, as well as hit and miss across the Alaska Range. A little bit better chance of running into VFR for the western side through Lake Clark and Merrill Pass. And in the morning, you might see some VFR conditions for the northern passes, as well as IFR conditions for Nunivak Island southward toward Adak and Atka. So here we go, Anaktuvik Pass, MVFR at least to start in the morning. You should see that improve during the day. Adigan Pass, probably a better chance of being VFR for most of the day. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass looks like MVFR through most of your Thursday. Rainy Pass, we're going to call visual through most of Thursday afternoon. Same goes for Windy Pass there. As we get around to Isabel Pass, visual is expected there, VFR. Mentasta VFR toward MVFR during the afternoon. Tanita Pass looks okay at VFR conditions through your Thursday. Portage Pass will say MVFR thanks to that coastal slop just slopping right up into the Whittier area. And Chilkoot and White Pass should see improvements as we get into the afternoon hours, though most of southeast will at least have MVFR through at some point of your Thursday. Now, warmer weather is moving up the eastern side once again, and several more surges will work that way, so this is just another day in the pattern. 2,000 to 4,000 foot freezing levels across south and west, especially the upper Kuskokwim Valley, and you can see some warmer air working in just north of the Alaska Peninsula. The surface freezing line hovering very close to the Pribilofs and the Chilkoot and White Pass area. Icing potential shows most of the icing threat across the Yukon Valley or the Yukon Delta west out toward St. Matthew and southward out toward Kiska and Attu. Otherwise, it's hit and miss across the interior, especially the north slope is where we would see a better chance ahead of a disturbance. That'll be above 2,000 feet and generally north of Chilkoot and White Pass and just outside of the Copper River Basin and along the Alaska Range. Otherwise, a hit and miss across the southern Gulf as well, around Sandpoint and westward toward Akutan, generally above 3,000 feet. Here's the jet stream. This is really all you need to know. As long as this low pressure system is sitting here, we'll continue to just slop up those Gulf Coast weather systems, just kind of rotating here. Now, this is gradually going to move around a little bit more to the east, and as it does so, the pattern will change ever so slightly, but the overall sensible weather probably won't be a whole lot different. And then we have our west and southwesterly flow moving across the north slope, rounding high pressure here across the northern Yukon. So as we're getting warm weather across the west, we're getting very sloppy weather across the Gulf, and most inland areas are just plain old dry. At 9,000 feet, south and easterly flow pretty much slows down and throws on the brakes across the Yukon Valley down to 5 knots there, then picks up again to 20 knots around Barrow. A ridge of high pressure coming into the Pacific Northwest is keeping the south and easterly flow parallel to the eastern coastline there and southeastern Alaska. Out across the west, several areas of low pressure there, bringing the winds up just a little bit more to about 20 knots at 9,000 feet. At 3,000 feet, a slightly more pronounced ridge of high pressure coming down the western side of the Bering Strait. Easterlies across most of Alaska, northerlies for the central and western chain, that's keeping you cold, and easterlies coming across the east and northern Gulf there, anywhere from 15 to about 20 knots, a little bit stronger east of Kodiak Island. So what about turbulence? Well, we're still watching for hit and miss, light to maybe isolated moderate. Most of that will be below 5,000 feet in the Gulf. Not too many concerns with southeast right now. Southwest around Bristol Bay below 6,000 feet. That could include areas around Kodiak Island. West of the Bering Strait and all the way south to Kiska, probably starting out below 3,000 feet and coming up a little bit higher as you get further southward. And the Chukchi Seacoast looking at some light chop throughout the day as well. That's a look at your aviation forecast. I'll be back with your marine weather in just a few minutes.
Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Jim Peranto. Today we're going to talk about the Voluntary Observing Ships Program, or VOS program as it is sometimes called. Now, the ships that are participating in this program provide much needed observations to both the marine and the scientific communities. And today I have Larry Hubble in studio, and he's the Anchorage Port Meteorological Officer, and he's going to discuss the importance of the VOS program here in Alaska. Welcome, Larry. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for inviting me.
So what is the purpose of the VOS program in Alaska?
Well, the Earth is covered by over 70% water. Alaska has a huge coastline. Very important to all of our customers to find out what the weather's doing out there. And we've developed a program to gather meteorological information to provide actual on-scene weather condition reports from all of our stormy waters, and it helps our forecasters do a better job providing accurate forecasts.
And what kind of information is gathered by these ships?
The ships can volunteer and report to the extent that they're available and to the extent that they have the equipment. But they give us their latitude, longitude, wind conditions, pressure, temperature, humidity, icing, ice conditions, wave heights.
A lot of information.
Weather, clouds.
Wow.
Some ships don't care to participate at a full level, but wind and pressure and temperature are very important to us.
Yeah, well, as a forecaster, I know that is very important to the operational forecaster when they get that kind of information to do the forecasts. Yes. What types of ships participate in this program?
Seems like we go after almost anything that floats. we love the container ships, the tug ships that are hauling fuel and cargo up there. They really support and serve Alaska. We encourage all the tugs to participate, and we have the cruise ship industry has really been good to us. The Alaska ferries. We have research ships, NOAA vessels actually, we have 3 of them home ported in Alaska waters. Mm-hmm. There's the tanker trade going into Valdez is very important to us. We're on a major shipping route. The Great Circle route between the western United States and Asia actually goes through Alaska water. Many of the container ships are very important to us.
So you talked about the type of information that is being gathered. Now, how is this data being collected on the ships?
You know, the ships have a package of weather instruments. Most of the major ships have weather equipment on board, and so one of our primary methods is a computer software program called Amber Seas that we provide free of charge to the ships. And it provides an easy coding method to get it into the World Meteorological Organization code. And they'll type in the parameters, temperature, wind, and pressure, and it codes it up for them, and it puts it in a format ready to transmit.
And this equipment is free of charge, right? I mean, I
Yes.
think it's important to stress that, you know.
Free of charge. Some of the ships maybe don't have the computer equipment, not really equipped to be a major contributor, and they'll look out their cabin window and estimate the sea conditions. They'll have a thermometer, and they may contact us via HF radio or VHF radio.
And when they're transmitting the data, that's also free of charge, is that correct?
It is. We pay for the satellite costs via Inmarsat-C or Inmarsat-A, and one of the things that we pioneered in Alaska was receiving ship observations via email. And we've been doing that for about 6 years now, and we get up to 7,000 emails a month.
Wow.
From around the world. This thing has gone worldwide, and Alaska is the portal for email observations from around the world.
That's incredible. That's outstanding. You have this contest that you guys have come up with up here in Alaska, and I think it's fascinating. Tell us about the contest.
Many of our marine community are competitive by nature, and we decided to have some fun with that, and we get the individual ships and tugs competing with one another. Sometimes we'll have a Crowley competition or a Horizon Lines competition to see who can take the most weather observations. And some have asked how many weather observations can we take, and I'll say send us 24 a day. We'll take one an hour if you have time. And we're thankful for those that just send one a day or a few a month. But the ships like to be number one, and so I have a global league that all the top ships in the whole world are competing in my league, and I have a Horizon Lines league, and I have a certain tug leagues, and it's been very fun, I think, for both them and me as well, because the numbers keep going up every year.
What's the record, the world record? Is there? I can't remember if it was Arctic Sun had was it 4,000 or something like that?
Yeah, the Arctic Sun continues to set a new world record. They're an LNG tanker that travels between Nikiski and Tokyo, and They broke the new record last year in '06 with over 4,100 observations, and here it is in March of 2007. They're on a pace to do maybe 6,000 this year if they keep going. These are some competitive men aboard this ship.
That's outstanding. How many ships participate in the VOS program now in Alaska?
We work with about 300 ships, and normally we're trying to get more every year. And
what about in the United States?
The United States program has about 1,000 ships that are in the VOS program.
Okay, and this is a global program, so how many worldwide are participating in the program?
I feel like we have the United States has the premier VOS program, but worldwide we have about 4,000 ships.
Okay, that's a lot of ships. There's a lot of water, so that's good information to be able to get those observations from those ships. Now, how can a ship owner out there get involved in the VOS program?
We have 3 port meteorological officers in Alaska. Those are good contacts.
You being one of them.
Larry Hubble here in Anchorage.
Yeah, it's
and
you.
Rich Courtney in Kodiak.
Okay.
And Deborah Elliott in Valdez. We'll provide the phone numbers, and email is a good way to contact us. Phone number.
Okay.
Contact a local weather office in Alaska. They'll be happy to get you started.
Kind of point you in the right direction. There's also a website, I believe, right? A national website that people can maybe go to get more information. Is that correct?
It does give a nice overview of the program and a description of the software and the scope of what might be required.
Okay, great. Well, Larry, thank you for coming in today. It's been a pleasure. I've been wanting to get you in here for quite some time, and I think people in Alaska want to know more about the VOS program, so hopefully they have learned more by this segment, and maybe we can get some more ship owners involved in the program. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all the mariners that are supporting already.
Great. And if you want to know more about the VOS program, we mentioned the website. That is www.vos.noaa.gov. You can go there and get more information about the VOS program. There's also a couple email addresses that you can look at either for submitting data or retrieving data. And again, Larry, thank you for coming in today. And thank you for joining us here on Alaska Weather Facts. Until next time.
Thanks, Jim. Looking at southeast wind forecast and marine weather for Thursday, you'll notice northerlies are coming down through the Lynn Canal and into the Frederick Sound region around 20 to 25 knots. Southeasterlies remain fairly light around Clarence Strait with 3-foot seas there, and an offshore wind from Cross Sound down to the Dixon entrance around 20 knots or so with 9-foot seas expected. For Friday, north and easterly winds will be the rule there. Northeasterlies out of Yakutat around 8-foot seas there. Southeasterlies outside of the Dixon entrance could bring seas up to 13 feet. Southeasterlies also come up to gales around the Clarence Strait with a 7-foot sea, and northerlies continue north of that with 20 to 30 knot winds and 6-foot seas expected by Friday. For south central, easterlies will stay up there across the Prince William Sound region. 4-foot seas are expected with south and east winds across the north and western Gulf, 20 to 35 knots, 11 to 12-foot seas there. Easterlies into Kodiak Island at 30 knots, and north and easterly winds coming down Cook Inlet to the Barrens around 20 to 30 knots with 9-foot seas west of the Barrens, 11-foot seas on the eastern side. Those come up a little bit more on Friday. We'll continue the north and easterly wind push across the north and western Gulf. Winds diminish inside of Prince William Sound down to 10 knots with a 2-foot sea. Easterlies inside of Shelikof Strait with a 12-foot sea there. Northeasterly winds also expected to continue but diminish in the north to 15 knots down to 30 knots around the western Barrens with an 11-foot sea. For the Alaska Peninsula, look for a light and variable wind and small seas in the ice-free waters inside of Bristol Bay. 20 to 25 knot winds elsewhere with 4-foot seas down the coast on the Bering and 8 to 9-foot seas in the Pacific. For Friday, an east and northeasterly wind south of Castle Cape there. You can see 9-foot seas continue. Easterlies come up now across Bristol Bay with a 3-foot sea expected by Friday, and northeasterly winds from Port Hayden southward at 20 knots with a 7-foot sea expected to cap out the week. For the Aleutians, an easterly wind for Unalaska. A little bit lighter winds there west of Nikolsky to Atka at a 15-knot flow from the north and east. East and northerly winds there south of Unalaska and Nikolsky in the Pacific with 9 to 10-foot seas, a little bit smaller seas the further west you go. Northerlies from Atka westward towards Shemya around 25 knots with a 10 to 11-foot sea on Thursday. Friday, really more of the same. A northeasterly shift out around Kiska to Attu at 20 knots with a 10-foot sea. will keep the northeasterlies north of Unalaska. Otherwise, it's 20 knots in all areas with 7 to 9 foot seas in the Bering and around 8 foot seas across the Pacific coastline for Friday. For the west coast, north and easterly winds in all areas. We're still looking at ice in most areas for St. Lawrence Island, southward toward Nunivak Island, and into the Kuskokwim Bay for now. Northeasterlies around the Pribilofs with a 5 foot sea and 20 knots. Freezing spray is going to be an issue to continue there closer to the ice edge, which is dropping southward. Northeasterlies around St. Matthew with a 35 knot wind and 10 foot seas there. Those diminish ever so slightly on Friday with a northerly switch there west of Hooper Bay to Macoriac. Otherwise, 20 knots for the Kuskokwim Bay, the Pribilofs with a 5 foot sea, and St. Lawrence Island still looking at some stronger winds around 25 knots or so. And remember, there could be some stronger gusts that improve or worsen, let's say, the wind chill across the western tip of the Seward Peninsula down to St. Lawrence Island. North and east winds across the North Slope for Thursday around 15 knots in just about all areas until you get to Cape Lisburne and outside of Kotzebue Sound. That'll run around 25 knots. By Friday, the winds are picking up across the Beaufort Seacoast as well. 20 to 25 knots in all areas. Northeasterlies for the Beaufort Seacoast, more of an east and northeasterly flow for the Chukchi Sea, and around a northerly flow outside of Kotzebue Sound. Recapping tonight's weather, the wind will be an issue for the western tip of the Seward Peninsula and the St. Lawrence Island Seacoast around the Bering Strait. North and easterly winds may gust up to about 40 to 45 miles per hour, creating a wind chill value of about 45 below. So a wind chill advisory is in effect from 10 o'clock until around 7 o'clock in the morning. Otherwise, it's scattered and light rainfall across southeast. Most of the precipitation lingers around the Gulf Coast through the next several days. Rain and snow showers for Bristol Bay. Snow around the Pribilofs and around the central and eastern Aleutians that may mix in with rain at times, and snow showers for the north. A partly to mostly cloudy sky for parts of the interior, but you'll have the better chance of seeing a clear sky and maybe another shot of the aurora tonight. South central, dry conditions except for the coastal areas, and it looks like continued more of the same until the end of the week. Thanks for watching Alaska Weather.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.